We are 700 rounds in at this point, and you can see the back of it's filthy right there. I just had that firing pin problem again, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. See, firing pin no longer retained. And check that out. That thing is sticking way out. That is not what that is supposed to look like, in case you're wondering. So what happens now is that that's no longer retained. This thing right here, the firing pin stop, it can slide right out. You can see that I just moved it. I can move it back into place. So, not good. I don't know, just wanted to get that on camera for you because I know I'd talked about it, but hadn't actually shown it. There you go, pops back into place when you actually let it ride forward really hard. Anyway, pretty bizarre.
Okay, Fusion Firearms Freedom Series reaction model. This is an update for you. We're at 700 rounds. And I know that I said I was going to do an update at the 500 round mark, and there's a reason that I didn't. And we'll get to that. Now, in the introductory little clip there, you probably saw that I was duplicating that firing pin issue that I had experienced from sort of the get-go after that initial 200 rounds. And that was my wife's makeup table, but there was a good light there for me to use and show you. And you could see the firing pin protruding through the breech brace, and it was not returning unless I let it run home with some force. Now, I did reach out to Fusion about the firing pin issue, and I emailed back and forth with Tyler Serva, who I'm assuming is Bob Serva's son, and he was very nice about everything. He said he's very sorry that that happened, and we started talking about what we could do to remedy it. And he said we had two options. I could, or they could send me a prepaid postage label, in which case I could send the gun in and they would replace the firing pin and firing pin spring, or they could send me the parts, the firing pin and firing pin spring. I can pop them in there and save myself the time and trouble of actually sending the gun out to them. So I opted for the second option, and I kid you not, the next day I received a notification that those parts were on their way to me. So as far as customer service goes, I'm giving them a thumbs up. I think that's pretty awesome. And that all took place within like 18 hours, 24 hours, something like that. Okay, in terms of shooting though, I put the initial 200 rounds with it throughout a hitch. I mentioned that in the initial video. And then the next session, I put 300 more rounds through it. And those 300 rounds were 200 rounds of Federal Champion brass, so literal crap Walmart ammo. And then, let's see, 100 rounds of Cellier and below. And yes, that is how you say it. I had to look that up, the actual pronunciation, but it's Cellier and below. 100 rounds of that as well. Now, around the 350 to 400 round mark, I started to have some malfunctions with the Brownell's 10 round magazines. It was, interestingly enough, the third round every time would not carry that round into battery. It would stop like right here, okay? And then what I would do is I would just drop this magazine like half an inch, and the slide would immediately run home, carrying that third round into the chamber. Then I'd pop the magazine back in there and it'd shoot the rest of the magazine without issue. So it was kind of a bizarre malfunction, but it happened, a handful of times, probably 6 or 7 times. And then from 450 to 500, it shot all of those rounds just fine. So it was kind of odd, but I was disappointed at first because I was like, come on, can't get through 500 rounds without a malfunction. That's not good. But then it occurred to me that this is a 1911. I'm not accustomed to shooting 1911s, and I had not given this gun a single drop of oil since the very beginning. I I took it apart when I first bought the gun and put a little bit of CLP on the rails and the barrel hood, and then slapped it back together, took it out there and did the initial shooting. So it had not had any additional lubrication. And, you know, if this was a Glock or any other polymer frame pistol, we wouldn't have to worry about that. I mean, heck, you can run those things completely dry. You shouldn't, but you can. That's not the case with this. You're dealing with tighter tolerances, and it didn't occur to me that it might need some additional oil. So the good news is I put some ballistol on the rails and the barrel hood, just a little bit here and there, and took it back out there, and the last 200 rounds of Cellier and below ammo, 115 grain, went through it without a hiccup. So I'm inclined to say thus far the reliability is 100% when oiled. Now, you'll see people out there with Wilson Combats and Dan Wessons and Nighthawks and things like that, and 3,000 rounds, no malfunctions. I'm like, okay, I believe that, but I also want to know what's your maintenance look like on a 1911, because at the end of the day, we all have to acknowledge the fact that 1911s, while historical, awesome shooting, just all around great firearms, they do require a little more maintenance. I still haven't cleaned this gun. It is extremely dirty after 700 rounds. And I'm going to once I get to the 1,000 round mark, but I wanted to get through that 1,000 rounds without actually cleaning this gun. And so, but in what I was saying about the thousands of rounds, I just want to know what their maintenance schedule looks like. Are they having to put additional oil on it, or are they truly oiling up the gun and then shooting 1,000, 2,000 rounds through it without any additional lubrication? I'm gonna guess that the answer is absolutely not. But then again, I don't know. I'm not as experienced with that. So, shooting so far, really good. You'll also notice that I did replace the fiber optic on the front. It had like that milky white placeholder. I have replaced that with an actual orange fiber optic that seems to be doing pretty well. And I'm gonna continue to push this thing to 1,000 rounds and then give a final opinion on it. I will be getting the firing pin and spring shortly, so I'll be able to pop those in there and see if we can do away with that issue that I've had. Now, beyond that, I looked up the black oxide because I couldn't give you much information about that the last time. And I said I thought it was a bluing process, but I wasn't certain of that. So I took to the internet, and according to Robar Guns, now Robar does a lot of high-end finishes. They're probably best known for their MP3 coating or finish. And according to them, black oxide, commonly called bluing, this process oxidizes metal surfaces to a corrosion-resistant decorative finish. The matte black finish is produced by a chemical reaction directly with the iron in the steel to form the black oxide of iron. So there you have it. It is a bluing process. It is not a polished bluing, but it is a matte bluing finish. And overall, I really like it. It will probably wear over time, and that is totally okay by me. In the meantime, it looks pretty darn good. Okay? Beyond this, I also did a little bit of looking into spring weights, because when I had those malfunctions initially, I thought to myself, you know what? I am just shooting pretty much, off the shelf 115 grain ammo through this thing. And it occurred to me that they had sent another spring with the gun. This is a 10-pound government length recoil spring. And I read online that oftentimes the 10-pound spring can be more applicable to 115 grain ammo. That is, the lighter spring can be more effective with lighter loads. And since I'm not shooting any 124 or 147 through this gun, it might function better, even though it's been, when oiled, 100% with this lighter recoil spring. So that's an option as well that I haven't really played around with, but did look into. And I know Wilson Combat on their website has like a test, some sort of recoil test where you shoot the gun one-handed with kind of a loose grip to see if the slide is locking back. And then you'll have to go read about it, but essentially it tells you whether or not your spring is strong enough or too strong, so that you can kind of dial into the appropriate recoil spring weight for your 1911. So pretty cool information there as well. Beyond this, I told you the types of ammo I used. I was using these 10 round Brownells magazines, as well as the Metgar magazine that it came with. And then I got a cheap Metal Form 9 round magazine as well. All of these things, once again, with the caveat, with some oil on the gun, or ballistol in this case, did run 100%. No problems with any of them. So everything is looking good so far. Obviously, a lot of this is still contingent on the the firing pin issue being worked out. Because here's the situation that I'm envisioning, and I know this is like a 1 in a billion situation, but say somebody was using this handgun for home defense, because I don't think anybody's ever gonna carry this beast. It's seriously very heavy. Maybe they would use it for competition, something like that. But let's say that they shot through an entire magazine and they were riding the slide stop, slide release here, and what happens is it does not stay locked back on the last round fired for some reason. And then that means the hammer's going to be back. They pull this trigger again because it hasn't locked back, and the firing pin sticks forward like it did in that initial video. And then for some reason, they're in some crazy situation, they needed to reload the weapon, then they'd be out of luck because that firing pin would not be in the correct position. And not only that, the firing pin stop might have started to slide out the back, and they might not be able to manipulate the slide as they normally would be able to. So once again, this is a really sort of obscure situation that I'm envisioning, but all that to say that unless I can get this firing pin issue resolved, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this handgun for like a home defense type scenario, which I wouldn't recommend it for that anyway, just because there are a lot of other great options that are higher capacity and things of that nature. But I'm going to replace the firing pin and spring, and we're gonna see if this firing pin issue continues to happen after shooting, and I will update as we get to that 1,000 round mark. But I'm gonna wait till those get here, put them in there, shoot the last 300, and then come together for a final conclusion on this. But anyway, thanks for watching.